Welcome to the Scariest Things podcast, your gateway to the trends and tropes of the horror genre. We are at episode 78, Horror in the Workplace. I am Liz Williams, and I'm here with
Mike Campbell
and Eric Lee.
Hi, guys.
Hey, it's been too long. Not really. So,
workplace horror. So,
yeah, you think your job sucks?
I know. I work in an office. I am not in a cubicle, but I am in a windowless office. What about you, Eric? You're an office dweller.
Yeah, I have. I'm an architect, and I work in a studio practice. That means there's no closed offices. And
do you at least have a window? Are you near a window?
We have great windows. We're on the 15th floor of the Public Services Building downtown.
What do you have a view of? Do you have a view of anything?
I have a view of the Hilton Hotel on one side and the Dunaway Hotel on the other side.
Oh, that's not bad.
Building.
I've been there. I've stayed there.
Yeah, sometimes it can be entertaining.
I'll bet. Yeah,
we have a code word for action in the hotel room.
What is the code word?
Rhubarb. and as soon as you say that, everybody flocks over to the window, and sometimes it's entertaining, and sometimes it's horrifying. So yeah,
sexy horror,
sexy thrillers,
horror.
Sexy thrillers.
So,
what about you, Mike? Are you in an office?
I am in an office, and sadly, the people that have supervisory responsibilities get offices, which is kind of cool in some ways, but you don't get a window. Everybody else gets a window, so I'm stuck sort of in the interior corridor, and all the people that I supervise are stuck on the exterior corridor, and I don't get a window.
So do you have a side light?
Yeah.
So you can. So you're not. It's not in a completely
it's not
isolation chamber.
No, it's not in a completely darkened chamber. But yeah. So question 2, Liz, do you hate your coworkers?
Oh no, I actually love mine. They're not going to get murdered.
Do they listen to the podcast?
Do they listen to the podcast? Eric, do you hate your coworkers? Deep down inside.
Deep down inside, I keep this in mind. I have been working at TVA Architects for 22 years now.
Woo!
And so
you do not hate your coworkers,
no,
clearly, because otherwise you would be a nutcase.
I am a cultural institution at TVA, and I've seen many friends come and go, but I still have. And there are at least 3 of my friends in the office who are part of our Patreon contributors.
Yay.
So, yay! Thanks,
so we definitely
guys.
don't hate them,
right?
The rest of you, though,
that's
come
right.
on.
Get on the boat. Come on now. So yeah, no, I think that this was a bit of a tricky.
It was very tricky
because even if you type in horror at work, it's different kind of.
Well, everybody has a very different take on it, but here's my hot take on horror in the workplace: hyper violent. Very, very violent.
Oh.
Most of the films that are associated with the workplace are very violent. And 2, it seems to me that a lot of these films they expose a deep, dark, latent hostility towards your coworkers.
Yes.
In many cases they do. Well, not entirely.
Actually, Mike, you didn't actually answer the same question.
Oh, which question was that?
Which is, do you hate your
No, I do not hate my coworkers.
I
make they all well, not all of them, but a lot of them do listen to the podcast, and we have gotten great kudos from them. I don't think any of them are Patreon contributors, but they all do listen to the podcast, and they are aware of the podcast. And I just hit 20 years with the agency that I work for, so I too don't hate my coworkers.
Right.
And I've been at my job 17, so
So there you go.
So this is maybe
on the line for a long time, huh?
I wonder if there's a correlation between that and us doing a podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe.
Something is whatever latent frustrations we may have built up over all these years.
Yes.
Taking it out on the airwaves,
Yes.
not at the coworkers.
Yes, you gotta have a healthy side hustle to vent those frustrations, and we vent them in the world of horror.
Yeah, I actually that's one of the recommendations that I have to every young person who comes in, because I often have to coach up.
Listen to my podcast. That's what you tell them.
Exactly. What you make it in this world is actually listen to me. No, it is. Get yourself something that you enjoy to do on the side, because if you let your work consume you, you might just go, turn into what the old terminology was, go postal.
Right.
And find something that you love to do. apart from work.
Right.
And for a lot of people, it's like a family.
Sure.
Right. In my case,
it's a horror podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So find your groove, folks, so that you don't go crazy on your colleagues.
Indeed.
All right. So where do we want to start? Liz, you want to kick us off with this thing?
Sure, I can start. So, of my three, two of them are actually in an office, but one of them involves coworkers in another space, and I'm going to start with that one. Mm-hmm. And it is the 2011 film The Innkeepers, written, directed, and edited by Ty West.
We have a collision, Liz. That was one of mine.
Do we really?
That was one of mine. Oh yeah, 100%.
I almost did The Innkeepers also.
Oh my gosh, how funny. I thought this one would have been the one that maybe wouldn't. So
I think it's definitely
we can all throw in on this. Yeah. So this one stars Sarah Paxton as Claire and Sean Healy as Luke. They are two employees of the Yankee Peddler Inn, and they're working on the last weekend before the inn shuts down. They only have a few guests at the hotel, and one of them is Kelly McGillis, playing a character named Lee Reese Jones, who is an actress who they think is in town for like a convention because she was on a really popular TV show, but she's really like a spiritual healer now, and she's in town for that convention.
She is almost unrecognizable.
Completely.
But it was great to actually see.
Oh, it was awesome. But yeah, when you first see her, you think, oh my gosh, this person looks really familiar, but I don't know who this. Wow. Yeah.
Takes your
looks
breath away.
A little bit different than Top Gun.
Yes. Just a pinch.
So Claire and Luke, in not just working at the hotel together, they also do paranormal investigations and have a paranormal investigation website. And they're investigating the ghosts that were at the hotel. And the most famous one is the ghost of Madeline O'Malley, who was a guest in the 1800s. And the story is that she commits suicide after her husband leaves her pretty much at the altar. I think it was like right before the wedding.
That is the definition of jilted.
Yes.
It is. She was a jilted bride. So they're there pretty much alone on their last weekend conducting their last paranormal investigation into the hotel and Madeline O'Malley, and strange noises in the basement. A mysterious guest does check in during the middle, and then something happens to him. All sorts of Ty Westian scares, low budget. You hear and infer rather than see, which is
awesome.
Always scarier to me.
Yep.
And tight confines, you're in one place. I love what he does. So
atmospherically, this thing was lights out. This was fantastic.
It's a ghost story.
Yeah.
It's
a great ghost story.
It's a quiet ghost story, but then in the third act, picks up the pace a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah, and was it Sarah Paxton? Is that?
Yeah.
Yes.
She was so. I loved her her enthusiasm, and you get a lot of these in sort of shaky cam movies where you get an investigator,
right?
Almost like the Scooby Doo kind of. I want to find out
the
truth of the matter, but they play off both of the leads here. Just sort of they're kind of they're bored, right, and they just it's like just sort of sitting at work watching the time go by. It's like, well, how do you keep yourself occupied? Well, let's go do some, ghostly investigations, and that's their side gig.
Luke's side hustle is that he has a website chronicling the hotel's supposed hauntings, the Yankee Peddler, and in real life, the Yankee Peddler is allegedly haunted. Yes. And the film where they filmed, or the hotel where they filmed the Yankee Peddler, is really called the Yankee Peddler, and apparently the cast and crew stayed at the Yankee Peddler while they were filming it, and allegedly some of the older people on the cast and crew were complaining about the younger people on the cast and crew who were up all night partying,
but not ghosts.
and because it's this old creaky hotel, you could hear like literally everything.
Right. No, so is it in like Connecticut?
It's in Connecticut. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, this is a great film, and the thing I loved about it was that this is sort of the pure embodiment of how to how as a worker bee how to keep your sanity. And part of that
Right.
is, having fun and being playful with your coworkers and being silly and being stupid and coming up with lots of fun and interesting distractions. Because otherwise, work sucks. And in this case, the two of them are having to basically close the hotel because the hotel is on the verge of it's collapsed. They're closing it. So this is the last.
And the owner of the hotel is in Barbados,
right?
I think, and not there.
Yeah. So this is, this to me really resonated because, that's oftentimes what you end up doing to keep your sanity with your coworkers is do something fun and distracting. So you're not caught up in the mundaneness of day to day, crappy, stupid cog in the wheel work.
Right.
Yep.
But if you're in a haunted hotel.
Yes. Check out Hauntings.
There you go.
Apparently, Sarah Paxton, when they, there's the scene where he is showing her the website and he shows her some of the footage, some of the the ghost footage, and she practically jumps through the ceiling when she sees one of the ghost jump scares. Apparently, the way they shot that, they didn't tell her that they were going to show that to her, and that is allegedly, according to the internets, that is a one and done, straight up for real jump scare. And they're like, we don't need to shoot. We don't need to shoot that one again.
Right.
Yeah, The Innkeepers is a great film. I love this. As soon as we got this assignment to do workplace horror and The Innkeepers popped up on my list as well, I went and looked. I was like, oh man, what's Ty West up to? Has he got anything going on? And he does. I mean, he's done a bunch of. He was working on that.
He did a Western.
He's been doing that Exorcist TV show. He did a bunch of episodes on that, and it seems like
did he? Because I liked that, and it unfortunately was canceled.
The Gina Davis one.
She was in the first season, and then John Cho was the second season.
Yeah, so he's been doing a lot of TV here and there, but he hasn't been doing any movie stuff. And I couldn't get a line on whether he has anything coming up anytime soon, movie wise.
Ty West, if you're listening, let us know what you're doing.
We'd love to talk to you, Ty.
We'd love to have you on the podcast. All right, Eric, what do you got for since Liz and I came in at our number 3.
Well, so I'm going with a 2017 movie near and dear to me called Mayhem.
Yeah.
This is directed by Joe Lynch, who did a funny little movie called Night of Badassdom with Peter Dinklage and Summer Glau, which is sort of a fantasy role-playing kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So so he comes at it from sort of a comedic angle, and it stars Steven Yeun, who is
from The
Glenn
Walking Dead.
from The Walking Dead, and this was his chance to be the leading.
Was
man.
this his first movie?
He'd been in some other movies as a supporting cast member, but this is his. Yeah, this is
his
Glenn
first
made him a star.
His first major motion picture,
and for me, this is huge. This is an Asian American actor playing the lead, and he's not a kung fu star.
Right.
So that's like, all right. And it also stars Samara Weaving, who I sort of fawned over on the review of Ready or Not.
That's right. There was a lot of fawning.
She is fantastic.
Lots of fawning.
Lots of reasons to fawn over Samara Weaving. She is a very, very talented actress, and she's gorgeous. But they are. So the story here. This is a straight up office horror event where Steven Yeun plays Derek, who has been slowly working his way up the corporate ladder in a ne'er-do-well law firm. Because there's a virus that is breaking out across the country that it's kind of like the rage virus. I
was thinking like an office computer virus.
No. This is an
actual virus.
A virus
that
the gross kind
that heightens all of your id, right? All of your rage, your lust, your grief, your fear, and it just amps it to overdrive. And this law firm had come up with they had developed a policy that would inoculate someone from doing something when they were under the influence of this virus. That they could, and so there was a murder that happened, and they managed to get that person off because of that event.
Okay.
And so there's a context there of what this office's relationship is with it. And so Derek is trying to figure out a way. It's like he's a young lawyer trying to move his way up the ladder, and he ends up getting saddled with a case that seems like, it's just a simple liability case. I'm just going to do away with it. And then Samara Weaving shows up and pleads with him because it was something where they were denied some coverage on some stuff, some insurance thing. Her mother died, and she's wanting to pursue that. And then he says, no, I'm going to try to do that. Shut this thing down. Kind of like what was the Sam Raimi movie? Drag Me to Hell.
Oh yeah, Drag Me to Hell.
Like,
right.
I'm going to move up the ladder by being a dick.
Right.
But then his conscience gets the better of him, and he goes up the ladder, and they say, no, this is closed.
Yeah.
Get her out of here. We don't want to deal with it.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, the office in this office tower gets hit with this virus.
Was it like early into the film?
First act.
First act, okay.
And then the doors get closed and locked. The government they quarantine the building, and they say they know that this virus has a quick burn cycle, but the thing that really burns through the cycle is that people kill each other, and then
right.
And eventually then it goes dormant.
So does it kind of play out like a zombie film? I mean,
yes,
kind of sort of.
Very much.
Oh yeah.
It's strong. It's very much like 28 Days Later.
Right? Okay. With the rage zombies.
But there is some belief that you can recover from this, but you become murderous.
How do you recover?
It
Time
just
and
goes through your system. I think.
Oh, okay.
It burns hot.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was why like they
little
came up with the defense
Gatorade,
case.
some ibuprofen.
Yeah, with bed rest.
A little bed rest.
So
cold compress.
But what they realize is that because of the clause that they put into that his law firm developed, that he also gets fired that day,
right?
Because he starts moving up the ladder, and then he runs afoul of somebody else who's who's the mid management sort of sees some competition and finds a reason to get rid of him,
right?
And so he's got he's got his fill up the box and walking out the door, and then they shut the doors and lock him in, and then they realize we can get away with anything now because of this virus. So and the colleagues are killing colleagues, and then they say. Right. We need to take, and the boss man is just like this evil guy, and so that these two, eventually he and Samara Weaving team up to go take out all the evil upper management scandalous lawyers, because apparently there's some other stuff that's got buried in the past. That if it comes to light, then it's like would find out that these people are up to absolutely no good. So there's a lot of sort of similar. It's not a completely new feeling movie.
Sure.
But it is a lot of fun. It's got great pace.
I know
it's
this is absolutely on my list. Every time I turn on the TV, practically I see it on the list.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Shudder.
Man, I gotta watch. Yeah,
was
I know.
A big sponsor of it.
I know. I gotta watch Mayhem.
Liz?
Have you seen Mayhem?
Yeah, it's great. It's super fun.
Yeah. Okay.
It is
definitely worth a watch.
Okay. So I'm gonna watch Mayhem.
Another one of the movies now that we've been talking about having to do movies we're ashamed that we haven't seen.
I'm ashamed I haven't seen Mayhem.
Most of Mike's movies are fairly recent.
Yes.
So
I'm ashamed I haven't seen it. But this film, my number 2, now that Liz and I collided on our number 3, my number 2 film that I am not ashamed to have not seen, I actually have seen, is the 2016 American horror thriller film directed by Greg McLean, The Belko Experiment, which Eric didn't like. I liked a whole hell of a lot because I think the thing is so fascinating about this is that it operated on a bunch of different levels, but it took basically the inner office classism and the director and the director of the director and all the bureaucratic trappings of who is where and why are they there and how are they there and why are they in that position, and it just burnt all that to the ground, and it said you're all on your own, kill each other.
Well, it's a huge sociological experiment.
That's the premise. Yeah. And yeah, not to ruin the film by way of disclosing sort of the entire storyline, but it is very much a sociological experiment, and you do sort of find out at the very end of the film what that sociological experiment is and how it's kind of operating. But In this case, it involves a group of about 80 employees from the Belco Corporation, the Belco Industries, who are in Bogota, Colombia. And they do kind of vaguely disclose that the Belco Corporation helps settle U.S. companies abroad and basically brings them into these various countries. And the whole point behind the company, the Belco company, is that they help these companies sort of adjust and deal with all the cultural expectations of being in a different country. The 80 people in the corporation, they very quickly, and I think very deftly, identify the office jerk, the office supervisor, the alpha male, the hothead, the young couple, the stoner,
lots of archetypes.
This, but they do it in a super fast way, because this film is absolutely frenetic. Because I mean, literally, you're like 5 minutes into the film, and that film, it's on. I mean, they lock the doors, they turn off the lights, and a nameless, shapeless voice comes over the intercom and says, "Start killing your coworkers. You need to kill them. There needs to be 30 people dead within the next 2 hours, and if you are not dead, we have inserted chips into your head, little microchips into your head that have an explosive device in them. And if you don't kill them, we will kill them." And the whole point is that ostensibly by killing your coworkers and surviving and getting the highest kill count, you will ultimately survive and you will be freed. You will be allowed to leave. Which of course is the ultimate Faustian. I don't know if that's a Faustian deal. It's a reckless deal. It's a deal that it's a losing deal. It's a losing proposition for everyone. And there are certain people throughout the course of the film that eventually say to themselves, "What the hell's the point?" And that's part of the sociological experiment, because they sort of drop out of the experiment and say, "Well, what's the point of killing my coworkers if I'm going to die anyway?" And this promise is a false promise at best. And so I'm not going to participate in this false promise, because there's no real need to participate in this false promise.
And they blow them up.
I drop out. Boom, they're dead. I really liked how this film moved so fast, and the violence in this film is incredibly grisly, and it is incredibly intense. But I really appreciated, again, from the sociological perspective, how quickly you see all the social norms and mores just collapse. I mean, in this case, it's collapsing within minutes, not hours, not days, not months. It's like almost the premise behind it forces people into these intense psychological decisions where there is no fight or flight. It's fight or fight.
Yeah, and although there are some people who will try and hide for the whole thing, and it's like the natural instinct is, I don't want to participate, I'm going to hide, and sometimes but there's somebody behind the master switch.
Yep. Yeah. Apparently James Gunn, the James Gunn, he was the one that originally wrote this. He wrote the film as the Belco. The film is Belko. He wrote it as Belco, the Belco experiment. But he backed away from. Apparently,
there's a real company called Bilco.
Yeah. He had been apparently. This came to him as a dream. He had had this dream for some time where he kept waking up in an office building that was all closed off, and a voice was telling people to basically kill your coworker. So this was something that actually came to him as a dream, and then he wrote it, and it got greenlit. And around the time it got greenlit, he was going through apparently a very nasty divorce, and he wanted to be just around family and friends, and wanted sort of like more positive things in his life. And to him, this whole thing was way too dark. And
that's not positive. That's weird.
Kill your colleagues.
Yeah. So he said, I just want to spend some time with family and friends, and he backed away from it. And apparently several years later, he allegedly had forgotten about it, and then he got a call from MGM and basically said, "Hey, we know you're kind of really not a part of this anymore, but do you mind if we if we move forward with this. And he said, no, obviously that's okay. I really enjoyed the Belko experiment. It obviously has Michael Rooker. Yes, that Michael Rooker is in the film. It's got Ted McGinley from Office Space. Yes, that Ted McGinley. And it's got David Smolchin from a ton of things. So it's got some
friend of the podcast.
Yes, friend of the podcast. Yes. So it's got a lot of great actors, and the performances that frankly all the actors deliver are really amazing.
Yeah, actually,
really, really amazing.
The lead, John Gallagher.
Yeah.
Also,
didn't even mention him. Right.
He was in Hush.
Right.
He was the killer in Hush.
Yeah. So great cast, and it's one of these films that I hadn't really heard much of. I read Eric's review, and that's kind of what kept me away from it for so long. And then I saw it, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is a really good film."
Yeah, I think
so. Eric needs to go rewatch it again. That's the take home there.
I think that the message of the corporate grinder, I think, was a little bit too on the nose, and it sort of really mulched a bunch of characters. You didn't really get. There's very few characters actually have any kind of a chance to have a story arc.
Right.
It's a blender.
Right.
It goes through. It is like about as high a body count as you'll run into a movie with recognizable characters. They have a big cast, and it.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
Well,
there's 80 employees, and 30 are dead within 5 minutes.
Yeah, so it was a curious piece. I think I wanted more out of it. I mean, although it is really a sister movie to Mayhem. I mean,
sure.
They came out at about the same time, and they have similar pace. Mm-hmm. I think the fact that Mayhem concentrates on a couple of characters rather than a whole ton of characters, I think makes it made it easier for me to engage with the movie. Mm-hmm. But I will say the Belko experiment is it's a killing machine.
Oh yeah, it is 100% a killing machine. All right, Eric, what do you got for your?
Oh, I think we're back to Liz.
We're going back to Liz. Sorry, Liz. Jeez.
I'm staying in the office building. A lot of people are going to get murdered, but this one is not fun like either of the other ones. This one is a 2015 South Korean film directed by Hong Wan-chan, and it's called Office. It is available to stream on Netflix right now. And this one is watching it as an American viewer. This is really showing, I guess, the workload of people who work in an office in South Korea. These people are working from about 8 a.m. till 10 p.m. Some of them go back later to finish reports. And this is a sales team where one of the sales team, Mr. Kim, has left work one night and murdered his entire family and then is on the run, but the sales team and his coworkers don't know that he has returned to the office and is hiding in the building. So our protagonist really is an intern named Mirai. So she's this young girl, graduated from college. So I guess interns there are really, you're just trying to get a job. So you intern for a little bit and then they see if they want to hire you. Right. But you've already been at college. Her competition of intern has a MBA from an American school. So these are not just, I'm in my freshman year of college during the summer. I need to do an internship. Mm-hmm. These are, more grown up and professional people. And so this guy has murdered his family and is now coming back to kill all his coworkers because they treated him poorly at the office. So this one's a real bummer. Yeah.
This is the going postal.
Right.
Yeah, this is going postal. But it's because, they're like, well, he wasn't there working hard enough and writing the sales reports. They're literally there at 10 o'clock at night. People are going back at midnight after, I couldn't sleep. I was thinking about the sales report. So I came back to write it and things like that. So
do they give you a sense that he is a kind of a crazed individual prior to him being fired, or is he just he's just crazed?
They all kind of thought he was weird, but not a crazed guy, just kind of quiet.
Yeah.
And he didn't really participate in all the office lunches and stuff, but they have a sales meeting and their boss is just cursing them out and berating them and saying why are you even going home with sales numbers like this, and just making them feel terrible and saying you're going to get fired if you don't, raise your numbers.
Right.
So they're all not wanting to go home. The intern lives like really far outside of the city. She has to take like a subway and 2 buses and everything just because she can't afford to live in Seoul. The office is in Seoul. Some of them live like in, just one tiny room because they need to be close to the office so that they can go there all the time.
Coffee is really for closers.
Yeah.
Coffee is for closers.
This is going postal. And it's bloody. They do have a couple of good kills. Like he does have someone up in the ceiling. They have those ceiling tiles that you can always push up. So someone's going to be up there when you see one of them open. Mm-hmm. And he kind of falls hanging from a rope over the conference table at a meeting. So that one's pretty good. But other than that, I'm going to bring it the level down. Stop the fun. We're going to talk about like the real plight of South Korean office workers.
Is it kind of one of those things where you don't know who to empathize with? Like, are you empathizing with the killer who is killing the corporate machine?
You know that some of the coworkers are real pieces of crap because they're treating the intern so poorly.
Okay.
And there is a little bit of a twist because the intern is one of the only people who Mr. Kim didn't hate.
Okay.
So,
but
Mireille is definitely our protagonist.
Okay. But the killing sounds somewhat justified-ish.
A little bit. Like if you were going to go on a revenge spree.
Okay.
I guess. And you know what? And if you're at the office from like 8 a.m. till 10 p.m. and never get to see your family and you're around a bunch of jerks who treat you poorly and then you get let go. Yeah, of course. You're going to.
That's called work-life balance.
Go back for them. Exactly. There is none in this movie. None of these characters have a life balance.
I think interesting, because I often associate that with Japanese culture of the live to work kind of philosophy and the shame.
There's a term for that. What is the term? There's like there's a famous Japanese term for that. We'll get back to that one.
It is that whole thing is like, hey guys, maybe you should have a side gig.
Yeah.
Maybe you should be a horror podcaster.
Exactly.
They should start an Office podcast. But so that's Office because.
All right, I'm watching.
I've never seen it. This is the first time I'd seen it or heard of it. I branched out.
I'm putting Mayhem on my list. I'm putting Office on my list.
Okay,
it's done. It's happening.
So for my number 2,
yes.
I'm actually, and we'll see if we have some collisions here.
Okay.
I'm actually stepping out of the movie realm and I'm going to books. I'm going with.
This is a horror movie podcast, not a horror book podcast.
But you will appreciate this because I know both of you have read this book.
Okay.
It's Horror Store.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, great one.
A novel written by Grady Hendrix in 2014.
But this is becoming a TV show.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
That is, I think, starting to be filmed. Question mark?
I know that there's been some ads put out for it already. There's a teaser trailer for it.
Right.
Cool.
So they have done some. They have filmed some stuff.
I
then.
think
If there's a teaser trailer,
I think.
gosh,
I'm trying to remember because I also know that the book actually has a teaser trailer, which is.
I don't know. You know what? I'm Googling. Thank you, Internet. I mean, this stuff is from 2015 that the show is supposed to be coming out.
Okay, so maybe it was greenlit and then canceled.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can use our contacts to contact.
Yeah, call up Grady and say what's going on.
Yeah. But this, as Mike and Liz know, is this takes place at Orsk.
Yes.
An IKEA-like store that sells cheap Scandinavian rip-off furniture in a big box warehouse.
In a suburb of Cleveland.
In Cuyahoga, Ohio.
Cuyahoga.
Cuyahoga Springs. Also, where Tommy Boy took place.
What's that, Liz?
Tommy Boy, the movie, took place.
That's right. Yeah.
Great. So some fabulous provenance there. And apparently the Orsk was built on the ground of an old asylum. Nothing good comes out of building on top of an old collapsed asylum.
Right.
And that doesn't matter if it's
run by
a
maniacal Protestant minister who was convinced that the only way you attain heaven-like status is through hard and grueling work.
Yes. And so that's also Warden Worth.
Yes, Warden Worth. Right.
So we follow the story. Our eyes to this story is through Amy, who is a slacker chick who is working there and not happy with her job, and so she eventually gets brought in to have to pull in some overtime work, because for essentially retraining and sort of punishment for allowing some things.
It's an attitude adjustment.
Yes,
she was in serious need of an attitude adjustment,
and so her supervisor Basil is a by the books young floor manager who nobody respects, which seems to be there are themes of that also in, I think, Belko Experiment.
Yeah, for sure.
Everybody knows of the guy who goes around and says, "Don't forget to do your timesheets," that kind of a person. And and Basil is that kind of a guy,
right?
And my favorite character is Ruth Ann, who's sort of the loyal employee, the near spinster, sort of Southern belle, who is also got caught up in having to work some extra overtime hours. And then there's a duo of Trinity and Matt, who are true believer ghost hunters, who believe that the stories of Orsk being haunted are true.
Right.
Because there are some. I think one of the reasons why Amy got in trouble was something stinky was on one of the sofas.
Right.
And which was caused by a ghost.
Right.
But apparently it was her fault because it was her section on the floor, and it was a great embarrassment to everybody because it was a stinky piece of furniture on a showroom floor.
Right.
And they eventually have to they think that there's vandals or that there's somebody who's been sneaking around inside the warehouse.
And the punishment is they have to stay and pull an all-night shift doing inventory.
Yes.
Inventory.
Yeah. So this is, workplace horror thing is like, oh shit, I want to go home. And Basil goes, I don't want to do it as much as you guys, but we got to do this. This is company policy, and you're lucky you didn't get fired. But somehow they get convinced to do a seance,
right?
To contact. They find a crazy homeless guy. Carl,
who may or may not be homeless.
So everybody suspects Carl, shit on the sofa or something like that.
And Carl may or may not be real.
Right. And then when they do a seance, something happens to Carl, and then things go kind of full on ghosty crazy, and horrible things start happening within the Orsk. It is so much fun, and I think a lot of the fun is actually in the references that Hendricks does relative to IKEA, where the introduction of every chapter talks about these banal furniture descriptions that if you've ever opened up an IKEA catalog,
and in fact, the book is laid out with the same dimensions.
Yeah, it's the
same physical dimensions as an IKEA catalog.
It looks like an IKEA catalog on the outside. If you flip the back side, it shows like the dark side variant of that.
Right.
Because there are portals to a ghostly dimension and the asylum, and then you get the ghost of the warden.
And what's great too about the descriptions of all the furniture items at the beginning of each chapter, which I discovered when I was reading the book. He has an identification number, as all of the IKEA crap does, so you can go find it on aisle L14. Right. But within the identification of each of the furniture items is 666. Every single one of them has 666 in it. And I was like, that is very funny.
That's cool. Yeah, I don't think you don't pick up on that because I listened to it on the audiobook.
Right.
I didn't actually have the physical copy.
Yeah.
But the audiobook is great.
Right.
All of the various characters really come to life, and it's a fast read, fast listen. It's one thing that you will just jam through. It is.
Right.
It is. And I think this is, for those of you not familiar with Grady Hendrix, this is a great entryway.
Oh my gosh! Is it ever
to get his sense of his style, and it's creepy. It's not outright horrific, but it's adventurous. Particularly the third act.
There's some pretty horrifying stuff though, because some of the furniture items in the Orsk are basically just torture devices.
Yeah, well, they start out benign and then they go full on torture device by the time you get to the final chapters. And it's
right.
This one will open a portal to hell.
Right.
So anyhow, I know that both of you two are huge Hendrix fans, and so I figured I'd toss this out there, and I would have no no
I like
pushback
it.
on
Good
that.
choice.
All right, my number one. I'm going outside of The Office, but I am talking about work-related horror. This is a 2011 film called The Kill List. And the thing that's interesting about
Yes, it's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, the thing because
It's on my list, my top 25. It was close to the top.
Yeah, exactly. And everybody kept talking about, in obviously in 2018, the buzz was Hereditary, and everybody I would talk to and ask, "Have you seen Hereditary?" They would say invariably,
Kill List is better.
Kill List is way better, and it is way darker. And I was like, well, that's not possible because Hereditary is awful damn dark. Right. Turns out Kill List is way, way darker. And the ending is one of the most gruesome endings I've ever seen in a film in my entire life. This film was directed by Ben Wheatley. It stars Neil Maskell, Mayanna Buring, and Michael Smiley. It involves a British soldier who returns home from Kiev. His name is Jay. And he joins his old friend, an Irish guy named Gal, and Jay and Gal are hired on as contract killers, and that's the work part. And the way the film is structured, it's kind of structured as a 4-part act, where each part is, and it's announced both as they're discussing it, but it's announced as a title, fonted on screen, the kill that they have to go do. So the first kill they have to go do is the priest, and then they have to go do the librarian, and then they have to go do the MP, and then the final kill is the hunchback. So
It's devastating.
But the film ratchets up in much the same way Hereditary does, where the horror isn't coming externally, it's coming internally, in that Jay and his wife freaking hate each other, and they are screaming at each other constantly. And of course, they have a young boy in the house, and they are screaming at each other throughout the better part of the first act. And then it's the first act culminates with Jay and Gal, his buddy from the military, have a dinner party, and Gal brings over his new girlfriend, who the 4 of them proceed to get completely wasted in the course of the dinner party, and the Gal's girlfriend goes into the bathroom and takes the mirror off in a very curious way, takes the mirror off the bathroom wall and carves this satanic rune into the back of it, and then takes these napkins that from the garbage can that because Jay had cut himself shaving earlier in the day, and the napkins have blood on them, and she takes those and stuffs them into her bra, and you quickly start what unfolds is this sort of as they're going through and doing all these killings, you also realize that there is a satanic cult that may ultimately be pulling the strings in a very puppet-like way of Jay and Gal to go do these satanic ritualistic killings.
Do this in our bidding.
But
they're unaware. But Jay and Gal are.
They're unaware because they're both of them are these really soulless, kind of vile characters who
kind of part of the job.
It's kind of part of the job. And as they go through and start doing these killings, Jay starts to get more and more unhinged and taking these killings in a more personal way. And the killings get more, instead of just going in, doing the killing and getting out, he takes it to a level. Many of these killings takes them to a level that they absolutely don't need to go to, and they get more and more violent and more insane.
So it's not just it isn't just the long shot sniper pick off kind of a thing. It's
no. And so
it's so good.
By the time they get to this, after the second killing, they as a part of the second killing, they discover a substantial amount of money of the victim, and they basically say, you know what, we can just take this money and we can just back away from the third killing. We don't need to go do the third one now that we have all this money that we've discovered. And so they go back to the Satanists and say, hey, here's the thing. We got all this money, so we don't really need to do the third killing. So we're out, y'all. And the Satanists are, of course, having none of it. I'm not going to say anything else about the film because,
No, don't.
because when you get into that final act and the showdown with the Satanists, that's when it gets really insane. Because I remember watching it in the first two acts, and I just kept thinking, "Where's the horror?" Because it's like the first act plus just plays like a sort of like a kind of like a thriller.
Yep.
Sort of like an action thriller, and you keep thinking, "Okay, where's the horror element?" And
By the close of the movie.
By the close of the movie, oh dear God, it's
number 5 on my top 25 that we did for top 100.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it's also very high on Matt Howell's list. I believe.
I love it.
It is a good film, and I was kind of shocked how really well done it is. My only complaint, I did have to at some point during the film switch over and start watching it with subtitles because their accents are so friggin' thick.
Oh, for sure.
I couldn't understand a word they were like. I was understanding it just by way of their actions and everything, and I was kind of like getting the emotions of it, but I couldn't understand half of what they were saying.
Yeah.
Otherwise, brilliant film. I would go 4.5. I would knock it down a half a peg just because the
muddy dialogue.
The muddy.
It's
English
a little
dialogue.
confusing too. Like it took me about 2 times of watching it to really get, I mean, of course the ending I got, but like to really put it all together. But same with Hereditary. So I loved Hereditary too, but as soon as I saw Hereditary, I was like, oh, that was, definitely influenced by Kill List.
Oh my gosh.
Rosemary's Baby.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yep. All right.
Liz.
Okay, my number 1 was described as Dennis Dermody from Paper Magazine as The Office meets The Hills Have Eyes, and it is a 2006 film directed by Christopher Smith called Severance.
Oh, yeah.
I was surprised that I thought this would be a for sure crossover.
I was not aware of this movie.
Yeah, no, it's good.
Let's talk. Describe
so this one takes it out of the office on a company team building trip.
Yeah.
So the sales department of the Palisade Defense Weapons Builders are on a sales tour of Eastern Europe, and they're in Hungary right now, and they are going to a team building weekend at a luxury lodge that Palisade Defense had just purchased. So they're on a bus. They're all going out there, and the bus encounters in the middle of the road like a downed tree. So they can't continue on the main road. So they say like, hey, bus driver, go down this other property. And the bus driver is speaking only Hungarian. They can't understand him. And he's saying like, there's no way I'm going down this road. It's really dangerous down there. No one goes down there. So he leaves them, drops them off, and so they have to walk. So we've got on our bus, we have like the sales manager, we have the kind of like do-gooder who's got his fanny pack with, Band-Aids and first aid, and he's got waters for everybody. We have the guy who's a complete stoner. I mean, he's smoking weed on the bus and then eats a bunch of magic mushrooms. So
yes,
I guess
that's the kind of person I want in my defense contractor.
Lax defense system workplace, because that was a little bit much. But so you're establishing all your different archetypes of your office workers here. So they're all walking down to this quote unquote luxury lodge because they come to this kind of like boarded up building in the middle of the woods, and they're like, this can't be it. And one of them like, this must be it. Like, it has to be it. This part of our team building challenge is to get around this bad, situation that we're in. So as they're kind of gathered around a disgusting dinner that night, they talk about how there was a legend in that area that their luxury lodge that they're in had been an old detention center for war criminals.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
Hints upon hints upon hints, and they're not picking up on it.
and it's for like war criminals, and they kind of escaped from this prison and ended up like massacring everybody in the surrounding towns, and their weapons were provided by Palisades Defense. So
interesting.
Guess what? They're not at their luxury lodge. They're at this detention center. So this movie has landmines, flamethrowers, Balkan escorts, drug use. It has it all. There is a complete oh shit moment with a giant missile launcher.
Nice.
So if I didn't say, and you can't get it from this, it is a horror comedy.
Right.
About team building outside of your office. It's great fun. It's really bloody. That's it. Severance. Seek it out.
That's another movie.
Severance.
I'm going to have to
2007.
I think Liz is bringing some stuff to the table that I was not aware of.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I thought that this one would be a for sure. I was almost like going to say, I want to do it as my number 3, so I get to talk about it. But
nice. All right.
Number
Eric,
1.
your number 1.
This was interesting because, as we are prone to do.
You're doing another book.
No.
Oh.
But, binging.
Video game.
No, this is we're staying in movies.
Okay.
But I think I was halfway through watching something called Bloodsucking Bastards, which is another horror comedy about vampires in the office workspace. I saw about half an hour of it. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
It follows up on a lot of the things that I'm familiar with from being in the office, like, hey, where's my money for the basketball pool?
Right.
That kind of stuff. And there was like a lot of the office in gossip, but I didn't get far enough on it, so I'm going to hold off on that one, and I'm going to try to post a review for that on the site. But there is one that I had also wanted to do, which is it's again like Mike. It's outside of the office space, but it's definitely work. This is the 2001 movie about asbestos workers. This is Session 9.
Heck yeah!
Also on my top 25 list.
Me too.
That
was hot. That was pretty high on my top 25 list.
Yeah, I think mine was probably in like 17 or 18.
Okay.
So this is because there's this one. Even though it's largely a haunted house kind of a movie, it is very much workplace relations within the small group dynamics, right? Where you end up having David Caruso is the boss. He's Phil.
Mm-hmm.
This is the best and only good performance by David Caruso.
Yes.
not a lot of sunglasses taking off. And
exactly. He wasn't able to take any
but
sunglasses off.
Nope.
Peter Mullen, who plays Gordon, he's one of those that guy actors. He's a character actor. He's a lot of the genre stuff. So he's got a family. He's burning the candle on both ends. There's the kid is Brendan Sexton. There is Josh Lucas plays Hank, who's the wild card, playing who's dating Phil's old girlfriend.
Yep.
And there's Stephen Gavenden plays Mike, the would-be lawyer. They are an asbestos crew, and they are cleaning up an insane asylum, and in one of the dirtiest, nastiest looking facilities you will ever see. And I don't know if they had to trash it up extra to get it to look the way it does, but it is a grim looking facility. And this old mental institution, they stumble into these reel-to-reel tapes with a series of disturbing sessions, thus Session 9, with patient number 444, Mary Hobbs, a patient with multiple personalities. And so that this chronicles their cleanup, because this is the biggest job this crew has gotten in a very long time. Right. And but there's been a lot of internal fighting within the group.
Well, and they're like financially almost derelict. Right. And that's what David Caruso's kind of like.
That's why they said they're going to do it in like 4 days or something. That
even
was
though it's not
unheard
impossible,
of amount of time to get this job.
Right. Yeah. No, it's a huge facility, and there's 5 guys, and so they show up in their bunny suits, and but they end up having to split up And for whatever reason, they decide to listen to the reels playing in the background, and you get the various personalities.
Man, those reels are so creepy.
They're so creepy.
So terrifying.
And eventually characters start disappearing, and they start hearing things, and they start going, it's like, oh, who's there? And, it's in terrific haunted house fashion.
But in terrific workplace environment fashion,
absolutely,
they all turn on each other.
No, it's like there's no unlike say a lot of haunted houses where it's a family and they're all going to stick together.
Yeah, these guys do not stick together whatsoever.
Because the family aspects that you sometimes run into with a haunted house, everybody is in it together. There's that hell or high water, you're going to look out for your blood.
Right.
And though Mike, because you have no bad relationships with your colleagues, you're not going to go to the mat to haul, for some of your colleagues. I guarantee you, there are some of my colleagues who it's like, will I run into a burning building? No, but I will tell a fireman that there's somebody in there to get go get this person out. But I'm not going to. But if it's my mom, I'm running into the fire.
Sure.
Right.
Right.
And so but because of the internal conflicts about the financial situation and sort of the general trust of, are you working hard enough? We've got to get this deadline. It's like, you guys we've got to bust it extra hard to get this thing done, because if we don't do this, the company's dead.
Right.
Those stresses sort of agitate. It brings up all this bad juice out of these people. And
although interestingly, though, later on in the film, the family dynamic does come into play.
But you don't spoil it
in a very dark way.
Yes, there are some external connections that play out.
Yeah,
in a very dark way.
Super dark. I put Session 9 as number 13 on my top 25 list of all time.
I don't remember if I have Session 9 on it, but I was considering
13.
my list. It is
I don't
one
remember
of the great forgotten gems.
Oh my gosh, is it ever? Yeah, I don't even remember where it came in on our top 100 list.
It made it on the list.
Oh, it definitely made it on the list.
Oh, it definitely did.
I want to say
people who
60s or 70s.
when they see it, they're like, "Oh my god, it's amazing." But if people don't know about it.
Right. Yeah. They don't.
It's number 19 on mine.
So this is part of why we exist.
That's right.
It's to get people to go out and find movies like Session 9.
Help you discover the tropes and trends of the horror genre. After I saw Session 9, I remember I talked to Eric, and this was this was 2001, so this was 20 years before we were doing the podcast, and I told him about the film, and I said, I watched the film on a Sunday night at like 10 o'clock, and I had to stay up till like 2 o'clock in the morning watching infomercials after the film had ended, because I was basically paralyzed on the couch with fear. That's how scary it was.
And this is a man who's claimed never to have an emotional reaction to a horror movie, I think, in our speed round.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think that brings us to the end of our list. I know that we've had at least one collision, but Liz, why don't you remind us what your selections were?
Well, I started with a collision with Mike, and it's 2011's Thai West film, The Innkeepers. Then I have a 2015 Korean film directed by Hong Won-chan called The Office. And I wrapped it out with my number one, Severance from 2006, directed by Christopher Smith.
And I picked the 2016 American horror thriller directed by Greg McLean, The Belko Experiment. And then, of course, the 2011 film, The Innkeepers. And lastly, also a 2011 film, The Kill List.
All right. I have 2017's Mayhem, directed by Joe Lynch. And then I went with a book, Horror Stour, a novel by Grady Hendrix in 2014. And we closed out with 2001's Brad Anderson directed Session 9. And I also, and stay tuned, I will have a review for Blood-Sucking Bastards from 2015. It looks promising.
It's good. It's funny.
I think the thing that's really interesting is that while I'm sure if we dug deep enough, we would probably see stuff from the 50s, 60s, 70s, et cetera, that would fit into this category. But I think really kind of the office space, the modern the modern workforce structure is such a new thing that you don't see a lot of stuff really prior to, say, 1995 that would really kind of fit this bill. Because it was like offices weren't really, in corporations, weren't entirely organized in quite the same way that they are right now, which is turning everybody into soulless, blood-sucking freaks.
Yeah, right. I think people are not. They worked 9 to 5 and actually got to leave their work at the office and go home and like have nice dinners with their family. Now it's like, wait a minute, you're not staying,
right?
Well, there are some other kinds of movies out there that I was tempted to do. Some of those old Stephen King-y things like The Mangler.
Oh, sure.
Or Graveyard Shift. Or where that there's something horrible happening in with a work environment tied to it. Oh, actually, another one was Slice, the pizza, the pizza joint thing. Yeah. I thought about that one as well.
Yeah,
but I think that the soul crushing office job, I think, was the sort of the rough intent. I think when Liz brought this to our attention.
I think we met that goal.
I think we did too.
Yeah,
we met our goal.
So
we met our goal for the month.
So Liz, I know
we've done it. We've reached our sales numbers.
Apropos, Liz, I know that you've got a grave digging idea that you wanted to bring to us.
I do. So the first film we saw at the Overlook, or actually the first one after the opening film of The Dead Don't Die, was a movie called Head Count, about a group of teens that are out in the Joshua Tree Desert and experiencing some trippy stuff. And it has just become available on Netflix. So definitely check that out if you're a Netflix subscriber.
Go get
Head Count.
Yeah. Fun movie. And check out Eric's review, of Head Count on the scariestthings.com 1T.
Yeah, I think with the exception of the show your monster rule, it was fantastic. Right. I think that it had a lot of fun. I mean, it really is a head count movie. You're going, what happened to that character? Is this and I think they play up on it very well for a first time directing job.
Yeah.
Yes, I think it was.
Who's the director?
Let me see I think
it's a woman who directed
this. It is a female director, yeah. And I do not recall her name, and it is a first-time female director too, and it's a great job.
Which is, I think, something that we're seeing a lot in the last couple of years.
What did you give this? Do you remember?
I think
4 stars? Her name is Elle Callahan.
I think I gave it 3.5.
That's pretty solid.
Yep.
That's pretty solid.
Yeah.
All right. My little piece of grave digging comes to us from by way of a film permit from the city of Wilmington, North Carolina, coming out in 2020. Halloween Kills has started filming.
Yes.
Apparently, according to the film permit, they were shooting news reporter dialogue just this last week in Wilmington, North Carolina, getting ready for the David Gordon Green, Danny McBride Part 2 of the Michael Myers, Laurie Strode saga in the modern incantation of Halloween. I'm super excited to see this. I love the first version of this. Second one is coming out in 2020, probably around Halloween, but they are filming right now, and that is worthy of note.
Yeah, they're shooting back to back. This is a Blumhouse production, just like the previous one. Same. They brought the band back together.
Pretty much the same crew. Yeah.
Okay. So my grave digging is going to be just sort of a primer announcement of something of a side gig to this side gig that is the Scariest Things podcast. I am working on developing what I'm calling a
double side hustle.
Yeah, double-sided hustle. Yeah, man. This is a horror movie greenlight pitch simulator, or if you're familiar with fantasy sports, it's going to be assembling your dream team of favorite actors, actresses, director, tropes, and cast and crew, including artists and music, to come up with a movie that you can realistically try and come up with as a movie pitch through a draft process.
Right.
And it's something that might take somewhere between 6 and 10 players who are going to be play the role of a movie producer, where the scariest things will come up with an idea, like something like this is a 70s grindhouse post-apocalyptic film, or this is a contemporary art house, low budget, but shooting for the Oscars kind of a pitch. And then you take that and you draft according to, picking. It's like, I'm going to take George Romero, and I'm going to take Bruce Campbell, add in a little of Hans Zimmer, and this is my pitch, and come up with a story.
And so what is the rough release date on the horror movie generator list? No,
the horror movie pitch thing. We're going to have to come up with a cool name for it. But
I wrote down HMGLPS.
That's a horrible acronym. We're going to have to work on that.
Horror movie generator list something.
Horgs. I don't know if that's going to. I'm not sure if that's going to catch on. But this is.
We'll get back to you with a better acronym. Yeah. But what sort of timeline are we talking on? Horror movie list generator.
What I've got now is I've developed the database.
Yeah.
So it is filled. There's hundreds of actors, hundreds of directors. It's a big database that you're going to be able to cull from. Just like if you played, again, I hate to make the reference to sports fantasy drafts for those of you who don't do sports fantasy drafts, but it's the same way where you look up. It's like, I need a wide receiver,
right?
And you pick from. There's at least 50 wide receivers to pick from, and that doesn't count for all the other kind of players that you pick.
Right.
Same kind of a thing, that you will have a list of people that you will draft, and once you draft that person, they're no longer available. I'm hoping to have a working beta test for some of our. And we're going to do this with some of our local Patreon contributors by Halloween. Is my goal, okay. And then I'm hoping for
within the month.
And
within the month, HMGLPS will be out the door.
We will come up with a better acronym than Mike's impromptu.
We're sticking with the HMGPLMS.
But I figured that I think what we would like to do is to make this into something that what we can do as an additional fun thing for our Patreon subscribers, because it's going to be application based.
Yeah.
And that we can do live drafts as a fun event. That we can schedule, and we can also take this as a roadshow thing to various conventions and festivals.
So keep your eyes and ears peeled for this very exciting turn of events.
I might have bitten off more than I can chew.
We'll see.
It wouldn't be the first time, but
we'll see.
If you hear nothing more about this in future podcasts, you will know that it has died. It has died a horrific death.
But here's the thing: I thought that this podcast might be too much that we could chew on.
That's true.
And that's turned into something good.
Yes.
I thought the website might have been something that was too big to deal with. That's turned out all right. So this is my instincts are telling me that this thing's going to be fun. I've got a lot of people who've seen the draft, and they're going nuts about it. So I'm really excited. So this is another.
Stay tuned for the scariest things.
Shameless plug to say
double side hustle.
Yeah. Patreon contributions. This is what you get if you and there will be prizes. The other thing is that we have gotten actually Amanda Presmick and David Dosmalchian, friends of the podcast, Hollywood insiders, to actually be judges who will pick the winners. So what you will do is after you assemble your film, you make the pitch, they will make the pick. We will announce those picks on the podcast. So that's going to be part of the fun.
Yes.
So stay tuned.
Good stuff coming your way very soon. Eric, are you going to take us out?
I've got a great closing tagline, given what we were just for our horror at the workplace. This is from Mayhem, and its tagline is hostile work environment.
Enough said.